Netflix is one of the world's leading entertainment services with over 300 million subscribers in over 190 countries. Its popularity driven in part by the technology Netflix designed to help viewers find what they want in a sea of thousands of titles. Making recommendations is something Sarandos learned how to do as a teenager, long before streaming.
This brings me to your first job, which was at a video store.
Yeah.
A video rental store, and you had a reputation for being a great recommender of what movies people were going to like. How did that experience and this idea of understanding there are all these different tastes out there impact the way you think about your job?
Well, it was a surprise for me how much people cared about making that choice in a video store. But I would notice that people would walk around the store for sometimes an hour, reading every box and really agonizing over this $5 rental. And I thought, why is this, why do these folks care so much? So I started asking people as they rented, what'd you think? Did you like this? Did you like that? And over time, I had this strange ability to remember names and faces and if they like this or like that. And it became good enough that even if the store was really busy, people would wait for me and ask me, hey, what do you think? What's new this week? In a world of choice, the worst thing is, a list of 1,000 things to choose from. You really wanted people to narrow it down. And one of the biggest, beautiful ideas around Netflix from the beginning was, imagine if you had the power of the internet to personalize choice in a world where you have enormous amounts of choice. And the internet really had the ability to do that better than any video store clerk who had a good memory.
That experience helps Sarandos understand the power of personalized recommendations. And over time, Netflix developed an algorithm to show subscribers content that keeps them coming back for more. It's fueled by data, such as your viewing history, how long you've stuck with a particular title, and what you click on next. And it's constantly evolving. With all that data, Netflix suggests titles that consumers may not have searched for, creating massive hits, like Squid Game. Its first season was viewed for more than 1.6 billion hours in just 4 weeks.
Netflix is really a balance of art and science. How do you use data in your decisions about what to greenlight?
I always look at these as data-informed hunches, but should start with the hunch. Because I think if you start with the data, you might end up in a radically different place than you thought. Where the hunch is, hey, you know what's not on TV anymore that I love? Let's look for what are those, and then look at the data to back it up. I heard the pitch for House of Cards. And I said, okay, well, let's look at the data for a minute. David Fincher is a very accomplished director. Kevin Spacey, at that time, you look at it and say, okay, what's the worst performing Kevin Spacey movie of all time? And then what's the best ones? And you put all those things together and you say, oh, this is not just a show about Washington politics, really. It's much closer to Shakespeare. It's about revenge and sex and power, all things that are very, very universal. And this is a great execution of it.
As you get more and more data, do you have to push to make sure the decision-making doesn't become too driven by data?
Yeah, because I think the underlying thing in all that data that makes it true, those things that were big, were great. There isn't a formula to reverse engineer that. It's a creative process.
There's no data that can tell you sort of the next thing to make, right? You just can't do that. That would be derivative, and audiences would go, okay, well, that's boring and very formulaic. And so we don't use data in that way. Data is always really interesting to understand, different countries and audiences and, and there's ways to use, obviously, renewal decisions. All of that can play a part into it, but creativity is just all about gut and judgment.
Now, you have been described as the most international executive possible. You mentioned this, but your parents were born in India. You grew up some of the time in London and then here in Southern California. When you think about how that's impacted you as a leader, beyond just respecting the tastes of different cultures, how do you think it changes the way you do your job?
I was raised in this big extended Indian family, and it was very much about community and the village. And so I think as a leader, that's why I do care a lot about the team and the group and the community and the connection. My parents owned car washes, and Netflix isn't totally my car wash, but kind of, and understanding and learning to how to be selfless for the business. Are you making choices that are best for the car wash? Are you making choices that are best for the team and not sort of for yourself? And I think growing up in a family that owned small businesses was also really great training. There's so much of that core learning, right, from different aspects kind of your life, and for me, culturally, for sure. And then obviously a lot of that informed and helped me do local language original series and film around the world and understanding different cultures and different audiences.
Coming up.
Netflix was built by challenging conventional wisdom on almost everything.
Leading with no fear of failure.
Somebody took a risk on this big show or took a swing and it didn't work. We learned something from it.
After the